Hey, friends! We're taking a look at a gigantic cinematic blob. No, not Lizzo. This time we're talking about The Blob from 1957. Our story goes like this. One night, a young Steve McQueen is using his king of cool powers on a chick in Lover's Lane when a meteorite lands nearby. Upon investigating, they find an old man suffering from poking the blob with a stick. Seriously, don't do that. The local doctor doesn't know what to do, and the cops hassle our hero and his other way over 18 years old teenage friends. I mean, did they get held back in school for like 8 years or what? Anyway, the blob dines on the doctor and his nurse, then random other townsfolk. The cops are skeptical of Steve's story until the blob attacks a movie theater during a Bela Lugosi festival. Then it traps our heroes in a diner, and it seems like nothing can stop this gelatinous menace to mankind. It's up to the local police and these 30-something teenagers to help save the world. In our cast, we obviously have Steve McQueen. You know, he only had 44 acting credits. And a chunk of the early ones, some 15 or so, were uncredited or minor appearances in TV shows. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Our love interest was played by Anita Corso. She did a lot of TV, but her biggest claim to fame was playing Helen Crump, the love interest on The Andy Griffith Show. The local doctor was played by character actor Stephen Chase. He had a long run. He was in When Worlds Collide, The Buccaneer, and Yankee Buccaneer, as well as westerns and some TV work. Olin Howard plays the old man who first encounters the blob. His name may be unfamiliar today, but you know the names of many of the pictures he appeared in. He was in tons of things. The Spirit of St. Louis, Them, Santa Fe, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court with Bing Crosby, The Paleface with Bob Hope, I Walk Alone, a film noir with Burt Lancaster, Angel and the Bad Man with John Wayne and Gail Russell, Nothing Sacred, Orchestra Wives, and on and on. He was even in Gone with the Wind. The Blob was his last film role. The blob itself was made out of silicone with red dye mixed in. Looked like raspberry jam if you ask me. Special miniatures were made that could be tipped to allow the blob to move through a scene by gravity. Producer Jack H. Harris didn't make tons of stuff, but he did produce 4D Man, a movie I've reviewed elsewhere on the channel, as well as Eyes of Laura Mars and Dark Star. On a budget of $240,000, The Blob has more than paid for itself through the years and become a classic in the process. The story of The Blob doesn't end there, though. It was followed by an indirect sequel, The Blob Returns, or Son of Blob, from 1972. This one was directed by Larry Hagman. That's right, JR himself. He directed this. This one, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, is played as a comedy. Anthony Harris, son of Jack Harris, wanted to make a project, and his dad gave his blessing to do a riff on The Blob. In this one, a sample container is taken home by an oil pipeline worker. His wife stupidly defrosts it, although she was totally right that biological samples should not be stored with food. That's just basic lab safety right there. Well, it chows down on people right away. This young chick, Lisa, witnesses her friends being blobbed and rushes to ask her boyfriend, Charlie X, for help. But he's no help at all. She and her friends are throwing a birthday party for Charlie while the blob starts taking over and growing. The cops, of course, don't believe the kids until chaos ensues when the blob attacks a bowling alley. Yada, yada, yada. This starts out with an interminably long opening credits sequence featuring a cat. Blech. But no worries. Right off, we see that the Blob is the real hero here. In our cast, there is a surprisingly large number of familiar faces. We have Robert Walker Jr. as our hero. He played Charlie X on the original Star Trek, of course. We also have Carol Lindley from the Poseidon Adventure as one of Lisa's friends. Marlene Clark is another one of Lisa's pals, the wife who accidentally releases the Blob. She appeared in Enter the Dragon, Switchblade Sisters, Midnight Cowboy, and Slaughter. Her hubby is a very familiar face, comedian Godfrey Cambridge. We last saw him in my review of 5 on the Black Hand Side. Cindy Williams from Laverne and Shirley plays a hippie chick, and character actor Richard Stahl is here as the hapless owner of the bowling alley. He was in tons of things, 5 Easy Pieces, Overboard, 9 to 5, and many more. Quinn Gifford plays Lisa herself. She did some TV, but maybe her biggest role, aside from Son of Blob, was as Mrs. Winston in Masters of the Universe. Wrestler Tiger Joe Marsh is here. He was in Escape to Witch Mountain, The Time Tunnel, Some Like It Hot, and On the Waterfront. Dick Van Patten pops up as a scoutmaster. Burgess Meredith plays a hobo alongside Larry Hagman and this guy with the eye patch, Del Close. Bill Koontz, who sometimes was credited under the name of Bill Foster, works at the bowling alley. He was in Convoy, Frankenstein's Daughter, Kingdom of the Spiders, The Shakiest Gun in the West, just tons of stuff. Garrett Graham is one of the party guests, another familiar face. He was in Used Cars, Phantom of the Paradise. He was in Sidekicks with Chuck Norris and an earlier TV series with a similar concept. We last saw him as a hapless technician in Chopping Mall. Rockney Tarkington, you know him, he plays a cop here. You saw him in The Ice Pirates, Black Samson, Major Dundee, and he even appeared in The Banana Splits. He was in the Danger Island segments. And the police chief here, does he look familiar? No? How about now? That's right. Like Walker, he was in Star Trek as well, playing Ben Finney, the crazed crewman who tried to put the kibosh on Captain Kirk's command career by causing a court-martial. The cast alone is worth seeing this thing just for all the cameos. It takes a while to get going, and the comedy is very hit or miss. Mostly miss. But the Blob itself looks pretty good. Then the Blob got an update and a facelift for a remake in 1988. The movie generally sticks to the original story of the Blob, albeit with a few more tricks, twists, and turns. The Blob, of course, is more of a menace, and it's all achieved with practical effects. Some of these effects are fantastic. In our cast, instead of Steve McQueen as the hero, we have Kevin Dillon as a bad boy biker. Of course he's gonna get the girl, right? They all seem to go for the bad boy bikers, don't they? Damn it. He had to wear these ridiculous hair extensions, which he hated, but it was the 80s, so what you gonna do? Dillon was in The Doors and Platoon, among other things. Love interest Meg was played by Shawnee Smith. She was in some cool stuff like Iron Eagle and Leaving Las Vegas. You may know her from those Saw movies, but I don't need those in my life. File Meg under strong female characters, the legit kind, not the fake ones of recent years. She's not Ripley or Sarah Connor, but she displays strength without devolving into a girl boss. Really liked her. Her dad, the pharmacist, was played by Art LaFleur. He was in a bunch of things. Field of Dreams, Maverick, The Sandlot, Cobra, and Forever Young, both of which I've reviewed. Candy Clark is also here as Fran the waitress, another longtime actress. We saw her in my reviews of Blue Thunder, Cool as Ice, and The Big Sleep. The Reverend Meeker was played by Del Close, who was previously that guy with the eye patch who became Blob Chow in Son of Blob. Here, he has way more to do as the Reverend. He was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Untouchables, Opportunity Knocks, The Public Eye, both of which, again, I've reviewed. And he's even in some episodes of My Mother, the Car. Donovan Leitch Jr. plays a high school football player, and Joe Seneca plays a scientist trying to contain the blob. If you look fast, you'll spot Jack Nance as a doctor at the hospital. You know him from Twin Peaks. He was the one who discovered Laura Palmer on the beach, wrapped in plastic. This is a fantastic version of the Blob. Updated, clever, and exciting. And it was a huge flop. Fortunately, it was rediscovered and earned some of the respect it deserves. This Blu-ray is the one to get, with lots of interviews with the cast and crew who made the movie possible. I really enjoyed this one. The Blob is an uniquely original monster. Or is it? It may not be, because we have this film, X the Unknown, from Hammer Studios, which came out in 1956, a whole year before the original Blob movie. Things that make you go, Am I right? Here, some soldiers are training with radioactive samples when they detect another source of radioactivity, and the ground gives way. Radiation burns afflict some of the men, and later that night, a mysterious force begins frying people. Something is going after radioactive isotopes, the kind in hospitals and research labs, like the big research facility nearby. Turns out it's a blob, or rather, X the Unknown. Intrepid scientist Dr. Royston has to come up with a way to neutralize radiation, which, fortunately, he was already working on. In our cast, we have Dean Jagger. He was in lots of stuff, but I always associate him with his role in 12 O'Clock High. Here, he's quite able as the scientist. We have a bunch of British character actors in this too, primarily Leo McKern as Inspector McGill. He's most famous for playing Rumpole of the Bailey, but he was also number 2 in The Prisoner, and Companion in an episode of Space 1999. That's mostly where I know him from. And this guy, Edward Chapman, he was in Things to Come, School for Scoundrels, Doctor at Large, A Yank in Ermine, and Murder, an early Hitchcock picture. Anthony Newley is here as a soldier. He was in Dr. Dolittle, Above Us the Waves, Pursuit of the Graf Spee, Fire Down Below, and he played the Artful Dodger in David Lean's 1948 version of Oliver Twist. I didn't spot him, but Fraser Hines from Patrick Troughton's run as Doctor Who is in here somewhere as Osborn. And if you look fast, you'll spot Edward Judd as another soldier. He went on to play opposite Leo McKern in 1961's The Day the Earth Caught Fire, which I've reviewed elsewhere on the channel. I've reviewed a lot of movies, so... Judd later went on to play Bedford in the classic First Men in the Moon. X the Unknown could have been a complete failure. Why? Because no one wanted it, not even the studio. They weren't sure what to do with this one or how to market it. Originally, X the Unknown was meant to be another installment in the Quatermass series, but Quatermass creator Nigel Neal wouldn't let Hammer use his character, so Quatermass became Royston, and the movie went ahead anyway. The original director was Joseph Lucy. Lucy previously directed The Boy with Green Hair, The Prowler, and a remake of Fritz Lang's Amp. He later went on to direct The Concrete Jungle, Modesty Blaze, and Figures in a Landscape. But Lucy had been blacklisted in the United States for having commie views, and star Dean Jagger wouldn't work with a no-good commie red sympathizer, so they had to bring in someone else. That someone else was Leslie Norman. Norman had less experience, X the Unknown being only his third feature directing credit. However, Norman had spent years as an editor, so he knew his way around a movie. And he didn't want to direct the picture either. But fortunately for all of us, he needed the work, so he made the picture, and the end result is simply excellent. Cinematographer Gerald Gibbs pulls out all the stops, making the most of the black and white nighttime scenes. Proof once again that a good cinematographer can up the ante for a low-budget sci-fi film. Unlike some of these blob movies, there's no real explanation for X. Where it came from, why it shows up when it does, or why it eats radiation. Sure, Royston gives us sort of a guess, he has sort of a half-baked theory, but there's nothing to really back that up. Still, it serves well enough to move things along. They wisely keep X itself off-screen until the big reveal, to amp up the mystery and the tension. When we finally get to see it, the blob effects are pretty good, and unlike the other blobs, which basically just eat you, this one is highly radioactive. A very interesting picture to be sure. So, the original blob is alright. Steve McQueen is the big draw there. The creature effects are very good, and it has an unusual monster. The bright color photography is stylish, too. I'd give that at least 2.5 paws up. The return of the blob, or son of blob, that one isn't quite as good. But the blob effects make up for a lot. And it has a lot of familiar faces. I guess I'd give that 1 3/4 paws. Definitely the weakest link here, but it is an interesting curiosity. The 1988 Blob is probably the best remake I've seen in a long time, and shows a lot of respect for the original Blob. That's well worth 2 3/4 paws. And X the Unknown is 3 paws up for sure. Very well made and very good British sci-fi. Anyway, the lesson from the Blob is clear. If a meteorite lands nearby and you spot some raspberry jam with an attitude leaking out of it, don't poke it with a stick. Best to stay clear and notify the authorities right away. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.